Hey everyone, welcome back for another weekend wisdom episode of the Remote Real Estate Investor. My name is Emil Shore, and I got my co-hosts with me today who are
Tom Schneider
and Michael Albom.
And today we're going to be talking about generational wealth. We're going to be talking specifically about our thoughts on it, what our plans for the future, what we want our legacies to look like, and even how that's changed over time and how it might change over time. So let's hop into this week's episode. Tom sounds like he's at the Motor Speedway right now. He's got a little construction going on.
Or the dentist.
Or the dentist.
Ooh.
Oh, that's just drilling. Ugh.
Are they jacking up your house still?
They finished jacking up. Now they're adding in plywood to strengthen the sides of the walls. Usually houses have plywood on the side, but mine did not. So it's kind of scary living in the Bay Area where it's like a little bit earthquake prone, not being as structurally sound, but
like around just the perimeter above the ground, not like the shear walls that are around the foundation?
So you have the 2x4, like the framing, and then normally outside the framing there, it's common to have plywood, and my house did not. So they were adding in like some plywood and stuff. So a lot of stuff going on at the old casa. So that's the dentist noise in the background is plywood going in, deck being rebuilt, all this jazz. So kitchen being redone. Fun.
Rehab at work.
Rehab and a live-in rehab. Grinding through it. It's it's a first world problem, but it's it'd be nice to have a kitchen with running water.
So needy, Tom.
Yes.
I know.
So needy. Running water, electricity. Gosh, come off it already,
man.
Yeah, this is toughing me up. So it's good. Good.
All right, guys. So back on track. We're talking generational wealth today. This is personally for me something I have just gone back and forth on. Like, what do I want to do? There's like kind of two schools, right? There's some people, there's a lot of different variations, but I think that the two main ones are I want to leave a lot of the assets that I'm buying and owning to my family. And then there's some people who are like, no, I want my kids, my family, well, mainly your kids to build for themselves. And you either, I don't know, donate to charity or do something with it where, so curious, like, have you guys thought about the future? What does it look like for you in terms of passing, we'll stick to real estate specifically, like passing on your portfolio to your kids?
To be honest, I haven't really thought too much about the mechanics and the way that I want to do it. But what I do know is there's a good amount of lead time. I'm hoping that I live a good long life, that I can
knock on wood.
That I can, I don't necessarily have to make that decision today. With real estate, and I think this is relevant to passing on to kids. There's two things you can never change with real estate. That is the location of the property and the price that you pay for it. Down the line, one thing that I like so much about single family rentals, if you have multiple kids, it's much easier to kind of break up that kind of disbursement of versus your family owns a big apartment complex. It's a little bit trickier of thinking about passing it on to the next generation. So that's one thing that I'm thinking about with single family is it's a lot easier to slice and dice that type of wealth. Some questions that I've been having is, how much money should I be putting in this? You could do pre-tax money towards like a college fund. And part of me is like, no, just dump it into real estate. Like, maybe I'm losing some of that pre-tax efficiency, but like, I really love this as an asset class. So I cut in front of the line to give an answer. I didn't really give any like specific answers, just a few like couple of musings that I have is I don't have a very specific plan, but I do know that I want to get the assets in place and really focus on that side. Down the line, I can get more formal about that way of transitioning. So not positive I answered your question that you had asked me, but I had a good time answering it. Go ahead.
Well, I've got a follow-up that's more point blank. Do you plan on passing your assets to your kids when you and your wife are no longer around, or do you have a separate plan?
Yeah, I hope so. That would be the plan to do that. I think it's a buffer if for whatever reason, like, we need the money. Like, I hope to set myself up in a situation where, you have this principle of investments, be it in like properties, whatnot, and you never necessarily have to dip into it. you're making money off of the yield, you're making money off the cash flow, perhaps even, dipping into some of the equity through, another cash out refinance, whatever. But at the end of the day, the end of my day, I can, those source assets are able to be passed on to the next generation. I would like to do that and maybe even step it up a little bit. Maybe throw a house or a couple of houses in there too. So, all right, I digress again.
Nice.
Go ahead, Michael, or email somebody quick. Take over.
Before the potato hits the floor.
I am holding on. My hands are burning. Yeah, hot potato. Go ahead.
Similar to you, Tom, I've thought about it in theory only. My wife and I don't have kids yet. But they're definitely in the foreseeable future. That's part of our plan. So would love to be able to leave the whole portfolio to the kids, assuming they're not a couple of knuckleheads. It was something that I was left when I had future generations pass, and it was a hugely, hugely impactful thing. Now, if my kids have no interest in real estate, no, I'm not just going to give them a portfolio of performing assets and say, well, now you're set up. I mean, they need to express an interest in wanting to actively manage and be a part of that from a young age. It's not just a golden ticket. Here you go, figure it out. So I want them to be active participants. And if they don't want to be, well, there are ways to, liquidate the asset or get equity out of the asset so that they can use that cash for a better purpose or for something that they see more fit or that they are going to get more out of. Because so often you hear about someone in the future generation passing away, the kids have the asset, whatever it is, and they squander it or squabble over it or screw it up. And then it just gets really ugly pretty quickly. So if there's a way to avoid that, which I think if I had to play it out and as best way I could, I'd say that they would be involved in the business during their lifetime so that they're well equipped and well versed to take over should they so choose.
I think that's responsible also, Michael, that you're talking about kind of thinking about like concerns of potential like squabbles. I don't know. That stuff can get ugly.
It gets really ugly really fast. And I've seen it happen. I've heard about it happen with family members.
Yeah.
That's typically who's being left the stuff. So kids or siblings, cousins, whatever. And then the relationship gets soured because they are in a better position now financially because they have this thing, which is so silly to do. It's the exact opposite of what should be happening. So if you can plan for that in advance, and there are tons of ways to do that via trusts and making sure that kids get things at certain ages. And their estate planning is this whole sector unto itself. But the fact that real estate is such an amazing vehicle to keep until you pass is kind of comforting.
If you got a pet turtle, you can get really creative with wills and trusts and all that stuff. So if it's going to outlive you, if you have a pet, there you go.
Is that an analogy or are you serious about pets?
I have heard of it. Yeah. Yeah.
My thoughts on this have kind of flip-flopped. I think when you have kids, it puts it a little bit more in perspective. Like you just think about it more. I think there's so much value in learning how to build from nothing, right? Like, okay, let my kids kind of work, earn money, help them learn how to do the things I've learned over time, but not just give it to them or give them money or whatever it is. But I think that has changed a lot over the years. I think now I would love to help my kid, not just like hand my kids over properties, but help them get their first properties, help them do their first deals. Even if I'm the person giving them the cash to do the deal, like I'm their bank. That would be the most amazing thing. Cause then I think they're learning and they get to kind of make those mistakes. But I'm also, it's like you want to help your kids as much as you can, give them a leg up in this world. Like, why not do that? Why not help them, but still teach them those important lessons? So like you said, Michael, they don't squander it. Hopefully their kids, when they leave it to them, don't squander it. But like trying to teach them the value of a dollar and like give them a leg up, but not just hand everything over to them. It's kind of like how I think about it now.
I think in the process of, grooming them to take it over or whatnot, man, there's some really practical learning spots in there in like looking at, a pro forma, like breaking it down, like looking at a lease, looking at like math and English in action. So I think in getting to that transition plan, like I can just foresee a lot of kind of fun ways in getting them excited about these really important concepts with financial literacy of understanding that. So I don't know, it's kind of a gift that you get like multiple gifts to give from. One, the understanding on the inside of it, and then two, at whatever point you transitions assets to them, boom, gift number two. So yeah,
the gift that keeps on giving. It's the golden goose.
The golden goose.
Well, I think it's interesting that I see and you hear about these kids squandering it and squabbling over it, and it's like they never got any training. And
Right.
when a kid turns 16, they can go get their driver's license, but we don't give them keys to the car because it's their birthright or because it's their right to go get their driver. They have to go through training and they have to learn it and they have to earn it and they have to pass a test. Same thought process should be applied to business or assets. There needs to be training involved. We can't just give the kids the proverbial literal keys and assume that it's going to all work out okay.
You brought up a good question, Michael, that I wrote down. I want to ask us all. What do you do if your kids are just not interested in real estate? Like you try to bring them in the business, you try to keep them involved, but like, there's only so much. Like kids, a lot of times they don't have the same interests as you, no matter how hard you try. So it's a very, very real scenario. So what do you do if your kids are just not interested in real estate?
Can't you just go get new kids? Isn't that how that works?
Trade them
Someone
in.
who doesn't have any yet.
Yeah.
You
Trade them in.
swap them, swap till you drop. Isn't that what we were saying before the show
Yeah.
for real estate? Well, that's like Michael Zuber talked about that.
Exactly.
That his daughter was not interested. I think that you can, again, me personally, without having kids, it's all theoretical. But I would plan to support them in the same ways that I would if they were involved in the business in whatever their passion was. And that, Emil, I love what you said. And that's just not to go give them money and say, well, do whatever you want, but to be as supportive and helpful and give gifts in the way that is going to benefit their lives and further their being a good person in the world, doing things to that effect. And then deciding and having that conversation, hey, you're clearly not into real estate. What's something that you're passionate about? Maybe we can donate this to when we pass, or maybe there's something we can do in that department. Yeah, without having a super clear answer because I don't know yet. That's what I'm thinking in my brain.
I think based on if they're not interested in continuing to build upon the portfolio and actively manage, put it in a position where it could just be passive. And if they want to like have a career that is, I guess I don't know, net positive, and it's funny like who am I to like judge that? But if they want to have a career where maybe like the money that you make is not a lot, and this could help them out, build the portfolio in a passive way. I don't know, it's a weird thing to say that because it's like, who's judging like what's a career worth having. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, just making it like a passive position where it can help them, live their life a little more comfortably. I think that's would definitely be something that I would want to do, even if they're not going to be actively involved in it. They'll set it up to be passive.
Yeah, that's a good one.
What about you, Emil? What if the little one is like, yeah, Dad, don't care?
I've thought about this a lot. I'd hope that they'd be interested in either business or something. Like let's say they have some skill and they've wanted to start their own business.
Like bow staff skills?
Exactly, bow staff skills, nunchuck skills.
Mm-hmm.
Something where they want to start their own business. Maybe we can put some money in there and help them grow their business, right? Maybe they're not interested in real estate, but we can use the wealth we've created to help them start a business that's another type of asset, right? If they have no interest in that, I don't know, man. It would be tough to just be like, all right, let's just put money in. Like Tom mentioned, that was my first thought as well. Put in something passive, maybe a dividend stock portfolio that just helps supplement some income. I would just be kind of scared if they just have no interest in financial education, personal finance, like they're gonna squander it. So I don't know. At that point though, I'm gonna find out with time. Is it something you can do as a parent that just ensures that they're interested in this stuff that we're all interested in? I don't know.
I've got a better take now. I've got a more established take and
Right,
thinking
go
about
for
it
it.
and hearing you talk about it. It's so I'm going to it'll be in a trust, right?
Okay.
And if they're not into it, I'm going to make the decision that it's a really great wealth builder and the trust is not going to let them touch it. It's just going to dribble out, money for them to help them.
Yeah, there you go.
And it'll be just this little dribbling out money machine. That's what I want to do. Yeah,
A little ATM.
a little ATM. Yeah,
I feel like if my kid or kids are not into it but they still want access to the benefits and the fruits of my labor, I'll just like give them treasure maps that they have to go solve. And the trust dictates like, nope, sorry.
Dude, the trust, you can make it like, you can
make it do whatever you want.
specific
Do
and weird.
whatever,
Yeah.
Yeah. You must go to this location. You must solve this riddle.
You need your agent's license in Hawaii. Go to get your first allotment of money. Then you need to become a notary in the state of Vermont. And then you need
Your mission, should you choose to accept it.
Could you imagine like kids' faces, like this 50-point project of like random things they have to do?
Are you serious?
Wait. What if you do that same logic, but you make them
Yeah.
achieve, like they have to buy a rental property and achieve a minimum of 5% cash on cash for so they basically have to learn real estate investing to unlock the big treasure chest.
Yeah.
That's good.
So I don't know.
You might be onto something there, Emil.
They have to play a game. They have to play a
Right.
game to get the millions or whatever. And in doing so, they've learned their financial education. Boom.
You got to go to a soup kitchen. You got to go build a house.
Got to go be a good person. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
You can
Totally.
put all that stuff in a trust. You guys are like, you can do that.
Yeah.
You can do all that stuff. So, all right.
I have to go call Kelly after this podcast.
There we go.
Kelly, I got to update my trust.
All right, guys. Anything else to kind of add here?
I think
Just
we hit
one-
the essentials. Go ahead, Michael. Just kept-
Clearly, now whatever I'm about to say is not essential.
Nope, Michael, we did it.
We got
Sorry,
it
go
all.
ahead.
There's something that a lot of people might not know about, and it's called the step up in basis. And that has to do basically with Tom, what you're mentioning earlier, in that the two things you can't change are the location of the property and the price you paid. And so the way real estate is taxed is when you make a profit on the sale of a property, when you sell it from when you bought it for, it's called capital gains, and you pay tax on that gain. So let's say you bought it for $100,000, a couple of years goes by, it's worth $200,000. If you sold it, you would pay tax on that $100,000 you gained, plus some depreciation recapture, but let's not even get into that. So what a step up in basis basically says is that the day that you pass and you give that property to someone else or to an institution, wherever it's going, their basis in the property basically becomes the fair market value at that point in time. So what that all goes to say is, so let's say same example, you bought that property for $100,000 and go talk to your tax professional before doing any of this, but this is just high level, how my understanding of it is if you bought that same property for $100,000, a couple years goes by, it's now worth $200,000, and then you kick the bucket and you pass it on to your kid. Well, your kid's basis in that property is now $200,000 because that's the fair market value. So if they sold that property the day after you passed, they could sell it for $200,000. Their capital gains tax would be zero because the basis gets stepped up to the value at your passing. So if you sold it the day before you died, you get taxed on $100,000 in capital gains. If the heir sells it the day after you pass, after it's been stepped up, they sell it for that same $200,000. Their tax basis is zero. So it's a really, really, really amazing asset to pass on to the next generation because what Tom mentioned is true. You can't change what you paid for it in your lifetime. The basis does change in someone else's lifetime. So it's, again, a really amazing asset to die with, as morbid as that is.
Good tip, Michael. I was glad you mentioned step up in basis. Very important as you're thinking about.
So what do you think, Tom? Is that essential or not?
Yeah. Sorry. Repeat the question.
I would say that's fair to include in the essentials. So
Yeah.
Yes. Awesome.
Oh yeah. That's fair to include. Yes, definitely. The dentist office downstairs agrees. The pounding.
all right, guys, we're wrapping this one up. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on another Weekend Wisdom. We will check you guys out in the next one. Happy investing.
Happy investing.
Happy investing.